What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. And as I sit here, finally coming up with my own tactical setup that perfectly fits the way I want to play football, which took me learning the tactical ways of eFOOTBALL, which is totally unique, way more detailed than any other football game I played, which is awesome. Just like the game itself is totally unique and way more detailed, way more true to football than any other game I've played. But that's why this message is so important, because many players come in, including myself, and either A, came from a long line of another football game or maybe even two, and because of their distorted view, not really seeing eFOOTBALL as a totally unique experience, they just couldn't get a hold of the game. They couldn't understand it, they couldn't get the nuances of it, and they left, like I did several different times. Or this message is for the players who did see how good this game could be and started training and playing the AI lower levels, working their way up, excited to get to the higher levels, excited to get to PvP, because we all know it starts with AI in the lower divisions. And then, next thing you know, they get to around Division 3 or 4 and recognize the fact that the meta is just trash. Many of the players are trash. Many of the players don't play this game how it could be played. Many of these players don't even play football. Just all types of gimmicky nonsense, ratty BS to try to get wins. And then they decide it just isn't worth it to lose to all these players that they are better than skill-wise, and all around football-wise, but these players have totally botched up the game with assistance from Konami, because of course money matters over any type of good football game that Konami created. They recognize all these lower skilled players. They want them to keep paying. They want them to keep spending for better players, doing what they can to play their ratty nonsense and get wins. And so, of course, you absolutely cannot blame anybody for leaving after that. However, I promise you, the frustrating journey is worth it. And that is exactly what my message to you is. Do not let these low-skilled, ratty nonsense players, even with assistance from the developer themselves, ruin what is the best football game out. By far. If you stick to it, if you continue to work on getting better at the game, I promise you that at the end of it will be a rewarding experience where you are starting to dish out the beatings to these low-level players. At the beginning, yes, you're going to get beatings from players that are worse than you, right? They're going to pound on you pretty good because they know the ins and outs of the game. They know all these little shortcuts, and you're still working on getting better. You know how to play football. You see how good the football can be, but you still got to get sharper. And you keep working at it, and you suffer these frustrating losses, right? And you keep working, and you will prevail, and you will end up on top. I promise you that. And if enough of us do exactly what I'm saying, these low-level players will start to disappear, because there's one thing that's certain. These players don't like losing. That's why they're in this game, not even playing the great football that can be played. They want to win so bad at something. So the minute they start losing, they're out of here, right? Maybe a small, very small percentage will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start working at the game like these guys and get better. And maybe I can win playing good football. But a vast majority will leave and go try to get win somewhere else where they can take shortcuts and actually have success. So, I'm here to tell you, after leaving the game several times myself, including before I even became a content creator, and having played at a high level both of the other football games, so I've played both of them significantly, there's absolutely no question that eFOOTBALL is the very best football game, right? Without a doubt, there are frustrations in this game. It is not perfect, no different than the other two games. And if you want proof of that, you can dig into my channel and you can see. I make no qualms about telling the truth about each and every one of these football games, because that's exactly what I always look for and continue to look for when I'm searching for content on things I don't know. Even if it's not football games, I'm just talking in general. YouTube has a wealth of knowledge out there, and there's nothing worse than people who sugarcoat and BS and try to do things for clicks and views. And that's relevant in this message for two reasons. Because one, I believe that not enough people on the eFOOTBALL side of things are speaking up about the problems. They just decide to accept the game for what it is and cater, just like Konami, to these low-level players because it gets them clicks and views instead of speaking up about all the trash that is going on to ruin such a good football game. And then the other issue is that in accepting all this nonsense and kind of bending over, for a lack of a better term, to the meta, you don't get to see, as new players, just like I didn't get to see, the beauty of this game. So all along when I'm playing FC, just struggling because the game got so bad. All along while I'm sitting there playing UFL, watching it get worse and worse and worse with all the exploits, I had no idea that eFootball was such a gem of a football game because a vast majority of the content catered, just like Konami, to these lower level players. Konami did it to get more money because they want these lower level players that make up a lot of their player base to keep spending money buying players. And then the content creators did it because more clicks, more views means more money as well. So it all comes down to a bunch of greed, a bunch of nonsense that could potentially totally ruin a great football game. And hopefully players like us can make sure that this great football game doesn't get ruined. We can change the course of this game without a doubt. And how do I know that? Because I watched it happen as an FC player. I made it all the way to the competitive scene, FC Pro mid-tournament, and just walked out because the game went all the way to nonsense. It was not football at all, right? Much like the meta in eFootball. However, that game at its core was broken. At the core of eFootball, this is a great game. All of the trash AI assistants, all of the BS that caters to these low-level players, that's where the game's getting ruined. So if that's taken out, then you already have a great game. All that needs to happen is for players to start speaking up, and as the voices get louder, the message gets wider spread. Konami, they will now want to cater to the players that want this game to be great. And that's an easy fix because, like I said, Konami, they don't have to do a big patch like EA Sports did with FC25 mid-release. They had to take one of the worst games in a crashing franchise and make it widely accepted, and they pulled it off. Now, I know they're a big and powerful company, but you should see it like this. If a company that's number one in football gaming, that has the most money, the most players, still finally succumb to the player base's wants and needs, then of course the eFootball player base can speak loudly enough to get Konami to make changes to this game. But one of the big problems is that players say, well, there's a ton of low skill players that love the AI assistants and just don't care about how good this game could be. They like the assistants because that's the only way they can win, so they just feel like there's no point in speaking up, there's too many of them. However, when players like us, and I'm talking to you, start speaking up, start spreading these messages across social media. You don't have to be a YouTube content creator, but if more content creators start seeing the message, start seeing the fact that players want good football, and players that are coming into games and that get sick of the toxicity that's inherent over at FC and even the nonsense in UFL and anything else that comes up, if players start to see the beauty of eFootball and not the trash, this game will get more and more players that are behind making this a great football game and taking out all the trash that ruins it, right? So even if the message fails, is another way to look at it like this. Even if the message fails, it's way better to speak up and stand for the good football and at least get even just a quote-unquote cult following for a good football and bringing out the best in this game. It's way better to do that than just sit on our hands and do nothing and accept the nonsense while all these low-level players keep getting the results because they simply spoke up louder. They didn't sit on their hands, that's for sure. And even though there's a vast number of them, the bottom line is this: even if you do nothing else but just play the game the right way, I can promise you, you will get good and you will start getting results and you will see the tides turn, even if it's just for yourself. So do not give up on this game. I can speak from experience that yes, the road is frustrating, and yes, there are many things that drive me crazy and that will drive you crazy in the game. But at the end of that frustrating road, you will be rewarded with being a great eFootball player, playing the game the right way, having a blast, and beating down all of these low-level players that just try to abuse any mechanic they can and take all the assistance they can to just try to get wins. And no longer will they be able to get wins, even again if it's just against you. So keep working, And I promise you, there's no better feeling than the satisfaction of watching things come together in eFootball. It is very much like real football in that sense. You put the work in and you will see the results. It all will come together and you will see your improvements along the way as well. Take my word for it. I promise you, you won't regret it. Keep grinding. Keep having fun. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.